Hey guys, tonight we begin with something deliciously mundane, yet utterly fascinating. We're stepping through the heavy oak doors of a medieval castle, not for tales of epic battles or royal intrigue, but for something far more intimate and overlooked. A quiet evening behind stone walls, where life moved at the pace of flickering candlelight and the soft shuffle of woolen slippers on cold floors. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this. The year is 1347, and you're settling in for the night at Thornwick Castle, a modest but respectable stronghold nestled in the rolling hills of northern England. The sun has long since disappeared behind the western towers, and the evening air carries that peculiar chill that seeps through stone no matter how many tapestries you hang. This isn't Camelot or Windsor. This is a working castle, home to Lord Edmund de Montclair, his family, and about 60 souls who keep this small kingdom functioning day and night. As twilight deepens into proper darkness, the castle doesn't simply shut down like a modern building. Instead, it transforms. The great hall, which buzzed with activity during the day, now settles into a different rhythm. The massive hearth continues to crackle, casting dancing shadows across the limestone walls, but the energy has shifted from purposeful bustle to something more contemplative. The last of the evening meal has been cleared away, and the trestle tables have been dismantled and stacked against the walls, leaving the hall feeling cavernous and somehow more intimate at once. Lord Edmund sits in his carved oak chair near the fire, not because he's holding court, but because it's genuinely the warmest spot in the room. His wife, Lady Margaret, occupies a smaller chair beside him, her hands busy with needlework that she can barely see in the firelight. Their movements are unhurried, almost ritualistic. This is their time, these precious hours between the demands of the day and the surrender to sleep. The servants haven't disappeared, mind you. Medieval castles never truly slept, but their presence has become more subtle, more choreographed. Young Thomas, the page, tends the fire with practiced quiet, adding split oak logs with the careful precision of someone who knows that too much noise might earn him a sharp look from the steward. The flickering flames throw his shadow across the wall, making him appear twice his actual size, a dancing giant, performing this nightly ritual. In the corner, old Aldrich the minstrel tunes his lute with the slow deliberation of age. His fingers, gnarled from decades of playing, move across the strings with muscle memory rather than sight. He's not preparing for a grand performance. Instead, he's readying himself for the gentle melodies that will eventually lull the hall into sleepiness. His repertoire for these quiet hours consists of familiar ballads, nothing too stirring or emotionally charged. Tonight calls for the musical equivalent of a warm blanket. The castle's children have already been whisked away to their chambers by their nurses, but their absence is felt rather than noticed. The great hall seems to exhale slightly, settling into its adult evening persona. Lady Margaret's sister, visiting from her own manor 3 days' ride south, sits on a cushioned stool, braiding her dark hair for the night. Her movements are methodical, almost meditative, and the soft whisper of hair sliding through fingers adds to the evening's gentle soundtrack. Meanwhile, in the kitchens below, the real choreography of evening continues. Cook Martha and her assistants aren't preparing elaborate feasts at this hour. Instead, they're engaged in the quieter business of preservation and preparation. The massive bread ovens, which roared to life before dawn, now radiate a gentler heat that's perfect for slow the floor stones. The pots creates a lullaby of domesticity that drifts up through, and wooden bowls by candlelight. Water cooking the porridge that will break with practiced efficiency, cleaning the pewter plates, scullery maids move tomorrow's fast. the rhythmic scraping of wooden spoons against iron heated over the dying embers of the cooking fires steams gently in wooden tubs, and the soft splash of washing mingles with the occasional clink of metal against metal. These women chat in low voices about small things. Someone's aching back, a letter received from a sister in the village, the quality of this year's barley harvest. Their conversations flow like gentle streams, meandering and unhurried. Up in the solar, the castle's private family quarters, a different kind of evening routine unfolds. The chamber is smaller than the great hall, but infinitely more personal. Tapestries depicting hunting scenes and religious imagery hang from wooden frames, creating pockets of warmth and intimacy within the stone walls. A brazier glows in the corner, filled with charcoal that releases steady heat without the smoke and spark of the great hearth below. Lady Margaret's personal maid, Agnes, moves through the chamber with the quiet efficiency of long practice. She's laying out her mistress's night rail, a simple linen garment that prioritizes warmth over fashion. The evening toilette in a medieval castle is a far cry from modern luxury, but it has its own gentle rhythm. A basin of warm water heated over the solar's small fire provides the means for a quick wash. Soap, when available, is a harsh, lye-based creation that's used sparingly and more for its cleansing properties than any notion of luxury. Agnes brushes Lady Margaret's hair with a comb carved from horn, working through the day's tangles with patient strokes. The repetitive motion is soothing, almost hypnotic, and both women seem to enter a kind of trance during this nightly ritual. There's something profoundly intimate about this care, this attention to the simple maintenance of the human body in an age when such comforts were neither guaranteed nor elaborate. In the Lord's chamber, a similar but distinctly masculine routine unfolds. Lord Edmund's squire, a boy of perhaps 14 named Geoffrey, helps his master out of the day's clothing. The process is methodical rather than rushed. The heavy wool tunic, the linen undergarments, the leather belt with its collection of practical items. Each piece is handled with care, not because it's precious in terms of monetary value, but because clothing is made to last and must be treated accordingly. Geoffrey folds each garment with the precision of someone who understands that wrinkled clothing is uncomfortable clothing, and comfort in a medieval castle is never taken for granted. He brushes the wool tunic to remove the day's dust and hangs it on a wooden peg where the night air can freshen it. The belt, with its attached purse, eating knife, and other necessities, is coiled neatly on a small table within easy reach. These aren't just possessions, they're the tools that make daily life possible. The castle's chapel, a modest stone chamber tucked into the eastern wall, sees its own quiet evening traffic. Father Benedict, the castle's priest, says the evening prayers alone at first, his voice echoing softly off the stone walls. The chapel is lit by 3 candles and smells of incense and cold stone. It's not a grand space, but it serves its purpose as the spiritual heart of this small community. Gradually, others filter into the chapel for compline, the final prayer service of the day. They come quietly, without fanfare or formal procession. Lord Edmund arrives first, moving with the careful dignity of a man who understands his responsibilities, both temporal and spiritual. Lady Margaret follows, her head covered with a simple linen veil that transforms her from the practical mistress of the household into something more contemplative, more removed from worldly concerns. The household staff, who can spare the time, join them. Cook Martha appears, her hands still bearing traces of flour despite careful washing. 2 of the stable boys slip in, smelling faintly of horses and leather. Agnes kneels beside her mistress, while Geoffrey takes his place behind Lord Edmund. The assembled group is small, perhaps a dozen souls in total, but their presence fills the modest space with a sense of community and shared purpose. Father Benedict's voice rises and falls in the familiar cadences of Latin prayer, the words worn smooth by centuries of repetition. The congregants respond at the appropriate moments, their voices blending in harmonies that have nothing to do with musical training and everything to do with shared rhythm. This isn't performance or spectacle, it's the quiet acknowledgement of another day survived, another night to be endured, and the hope that tomorrow will bring its own measure of grace. The prayers concluded, the small congregation disperses as quietly as it gathered. There's no lingering conversation, no social pleasantries. The chapel has served its purpose as a pause, a moment of reflection before the final preparations for sleep. The silence that follows feels different from ordinary quiet. It carries weight, like the pause between breaths. Back in the Great Hall, the evening's activities wind down with the inexorable pace of routine. Aldrich has begun his gentle playing, his fingers finding melodies that speak of home and rest rather than adventure or romance. The music drifts through the hall like smoke, settling into corners and wrapping around the few remaining souls who haven't yet sought their beds. The castle's dogs, massive wolfhounds who serve as both companions and guardians, have claimed their spots near the dying fire. They lie with their great heads on their paws, alert even in rest, their breathing creating a subtle rhythm that underlies all other sounds. These aren't pampered pets, but working animals, and their presence adds to the sense of security that allows the human inhabitants to let down their guard as darkness deepens. In the stables, the final care of the horses proceeds under the light of horn lanterns. The stable master, old William, moves between the stalls with the unhurried competence of a man who has performed these tasks for 40 years. He checks each animal for injury or illness, running experienced hands along legs and flanks, feeling for heat or swelling that might indicate trouble. The horses, massive destriers and smaller palfreys alike, respond to his touch with the trust of long familiarity. The rhythmic sound of horses breathing, the soft rustle of straw, and the occasional stamp of a hoof create their own evening symphony. William speaks to each animal in the low, soothing tones reserved for creatures who cannot answer back, but somehow understand nonetheless. His words are a mixture of practical assessment and genuine affection, the vocabulary of a man whose life has been shaped by the care of these magnificent beasts. Up on the wall walks, the night watch begins its long vigil. 2 guards, bundled in wool cloaks against the evening chill, pace their assigned sections with measured steps. Their job is to watch and listen, to be alert for any sign of danger in the darkness beyond the castle walls. But on this quiet night, with no threat of war or raid, their duty feels more ceremonial than urgent. They exchange quiet words when their paths cross, sharing observations about the weather, the state of the stars, or the distant sound of an owl calling from the forest. The torches that line the battlements burn with steady flames, creating pools of orange light that push back the darkness in regular intervals. Between these circles of illumination, the night feels vast and mysterious. The guards can see the familiar landmarks of the surrounding countryside during the day, but now everything beyond the castle walls has dissolved into an ocean of black that could hide anything or nothing. In the tower chambers where the family sleeps, the final preparations for night continue with their own particular rituals. Braziers are banked to provide warmth without the danger of flame. Clothing is arranged for easy access should the night bring unexpected need for haste. Chamber pots are positioned discreetly but conveniently, acknowledging the practical necessities that medieval life never allowed anyone to forget. The beds themselves are substantial affairs, constructed of oak and rope, piled high with straw mattresses, feather bolsters, and wool blankets. They're not particularly soft by modern standards, but they represent comfort and security in an age when both were precious commodities. The linens, when they exist, are coarse but clean, changed regularly by servants who understand that cleanliness, while not next to godliness in the medieval mind, was certainly next to health. Sleep comes gradually to Thornwick Castle, not all at once, but in waves. The children succumb first, exhausted by the day's play and learning. The kitchen staff, worn out by the physical demands of their work, follow soon after. The nobles hold out longer, perhaps reading by candlelight or engaging in quiet conversation, but eventually even they surrender to the day's accumulated fatigue. The castle settles into sleep like a great stone creature, finally allowing itself to rest. But this isn't the sudden silence of a modern building where lights simply switch off. Instead, it's a gradual dimming, a slow retreat of human activity that leaves behind the subtle sounds of a living structure. The massive oak timbers creak as they adjust to the cooling night air. The stone walls release the day's accumulated warmth in barely audible sighs. Even the mortar between the blocks seems to whisper as it contracts and expands with the temperature changes. In the servants' quarters, tucked into the lower levels of the castle, sleep comes with the exhausted gratitude of people who have earned their rest through honest labor. The chambermaids share narrow beds in small rooms, their conversations dying away mid-sentence as fatigue claims them. Agnes curls beneath her woolen blanket, her hands still slightly cramped from the day's endless tasks of cleaning, mending, and caring for her mistress. Her dreams, when they come, are likely to be filled with the mundane details of her work. Folding linens that never seem to stay smooth, polishing silver that tarnishes the moment she looks away, sweeping floors that collect dust like magnets attract iron. Young Thomas, the page, sleeps on a straw pallet in the small alcove off the Great Hall. His position is both privilege and burden, close enough to the Lord's family to be considered part of the household, yet still servant enough to sleep wherever space can be found. He dreams of knights and tournaments, of the day when he might earn his spurs and ride out as a man-at-arms. But for now, he's content to sleep deeply, his young body recovering from another day of running messages, tending fires, and learning the countless small skills that will someday make him valuable to a great lord. The kitchen staff have claimed their rest in the chambers above their domain, where the residual heat from the great ovens keeps the worst of the cold at bay. Cook Martha lies on her side, her substantial frame occupying most of a bed built for someone considerably smaller. Her sleep is punctuated by the occasional grunt or shift of position, the sounds of a body that has spent decades standing over hot fires and hefting heavy pots. Even in sleep, her nose occasionally twitches at phantom scents, burning bread that exists only in her dreams, or the perfect aroma of a roast that she'll prepare tomorrow if God wills it and the supplies hold out. In the solar, Lady Margaret has finally dismissed Agnes for the night and now sits alone by the dying embers of her brazier. This is her private time, these few moments when the demands of managing the household have ceased, and she can simply exist as herself rather than as the mistress of Thornwick Castle. She runs her fingers over the smooth wood of her prayer book, its pages worn soft by years of handling. The Latin words on the vellum pages blur in the dim light, but she doesn't need to see them clearly. The prayers are written in her heart as surely as they're written in ink. The wind outside has picked up slightly, not enough to be called a storm, but sufficient to create a soft moaning as it passes through the gaps in the stone walls. It's a sound that might trouble a visitor, but to Lady Margaret, it's as familiar as her own breathing. She's fallen asleep to that sound for 15 years, through pregnancies and illnesses, through winters that seemed endless and summers that passed too quickly. The wind is the castle's lullaby, as much a part of the structure as the stones themselves. Lord Edmund, in his own chamber, performs the final rituals of his day with the methodical care of a man who understands responsibility. He kneels beside his bed for private prayer. Not the formal Latin of Compline, but the personal petitions of a man who carries the welfare of 60 souls on his shoulders. He prays for fair weather for the harvest, for the health of his livestock, for wisdom in his dealings with neighbouring lords. His prayers are practical, rather than mystical. The concerns of a man who knows that his decisions affect whether people eat or go hungry, live in comfort or suffer in cold. Geoffrey has long since sought his own rest in the small chamber adjoining his master's room. The boy sleeps with the abandon of youth, sprawled across his narrow bed, with one arm hanging over the edge. His dreams are probably filled with the adventures he reads about in the castle's small collection of books. Tales of Roland and Oliver, of Arthur and his knights, of quests and dragons and fair maidens. In his dreams, he's always the hero, always brave, always successful. Morning will bring him back to the reality of polishing armor and learning to read accounts, but for now, he can be anything his imagination allows. The Night Watch continues their circuit of the walls, but their pace has slowed as the hours advance. There's something hypnotic about the repetitive nature of their duty, the same path walked over and over, the same view observed from the same vantage points. The guards know every stone in these walls, every loose board in the wooden walkway, every place where the wind hits differently. Their watchfulness has become a kind of meditation, alert yet peaceful. Below in the great hall, the fire has burned down to glowing coals that cast barely any light, but still radiate warmth. The massive stones of the hearth hold heat like a blessing, releasing it slowly through the long hours until dawn. Old Aldrich has finally put aside his lute and settled into a chair near the fire, but he doesn't sleep deeply. Musicians develop a particular kind of rest, always half listening, ready to wake if their services are needed. His fingers sometimes twitch in his sleep, playing melodies on invisible strings. The dogs have arranged themselves in a loose circle around the dying fire, their great bodies serving as both guardians and comfort to each other. They sleep more lightly than humans, their ears constantly swiveling toward every small sound. A mouse in the wall, a timber settling, the distant call of a night bird. Their breathing creates a subtle rhythm that becomes part of the castle's nighttime symphony. In the chapel, Father Benedict has extinguished all but one candle, leaving the sacred space in a darkness relieved only by the small flame that burns eternally before the altar. He doesn't sleep in the chapel, but sometimes he returns here during the night hours for private prayer or simple contemplation. The silence in the chapel feels different from the silence elsewhere in the castle. It has weight and presence, as if the accumulated prayers of years have given substance to the very air. The stables have settled into their own rhythm of rest. The horses sleep standing, as is their nature, but it's a relaxed watchfulness, rather than true unconsciousness. William, the stable master, has made his final rounds and now rests in his small chamber adjacent to the horse stalls. Even in sleep, part of his attention remains focused on the animals in his care. A horse's distressed whinny would bring him instantly awake, but tonight the stables are peaceful. Up in the tower where the family sleeps, the silence has a quality of safety and shelter. The thick walls block out most external sounds, creating a cocoon of quiet that speaks of security and permanence. Lady Margaret has finally extinguished her candle and lies in the darkness, listening to the familiar sounds of the castle settling around her. Lord Edmund's breathing from the adjacent chamber, the soft footsteps of a servant checking the braziers, the distant sound of the night watch calling the hour. The children's chambers are the quietest of all. Young Lady Alicia, barely 8 years old, sleeps with the complete abandon of childhood, her small form nearly lost in the large bed with its heavy hangings. Her dreams are probably filled with the stories her nurse tells her, tales of saints and miracles, of brave princesses and kind queens. Her brother, 2 years younger, sleeps in an adjoining room, equally peaceful, equally trusting in the safety that the castle walls provide. Throughout Thornwick Castle, the night deepens like water filling a well. The human activity that defined the day has given way to something more elemental. The building itself seems to breathe, expanding and contracting with changes in temperature, settling into its foundations like a great beast coming to rest. The sounds are subtle now, the whisper of wind through stone, the soft pop of cooling timbers, the barely audible rustle of fabric as someone turns in sleep. This is medieval life at its most intimate and honest. No great deeds or dramatic events, just the quiet business of human beings taking their rest within walls that shelter them from the dangers and uncertainties of the world beyond. The castle stands watch while its inhabitants sleep, a guardian made of stone and mortar, oak and iron, maintained by the labour of human hands and animated by the lives it protects. The night is long, but it's not empty. It's filled with the gentle sounds of a community at rest, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow will bring its own challenges and its own small satisfactions. The rhythm of medieval life continues its ancient pattern, as predictable as the seasons, as comforting as the warm glow of banked coals in a hearth that will never be allowed to go completely cold. And so the hours pass in Thornwick Castle, marked not by the chiming of clocks, but by the subtle shifts in shadow and flame, by the changing quality of silence as sleep claims each soul in turn. This is history at its most human scale, where the great sweep of events gives way to the gentle rhythm of daily life. No armies march through these halls tonight. No kings fall or rise. No empires shift their borders. Instead, there's something far more precious and enduring. The simple fact of people caring for each other and their shared home, generation after generation, through the long centuries of human habitation. These stone walls have witnessed countless such nights, each one unremarkable yet essential, each one a thread in the great tapestry of ordinary life that forms the true foundation of civilization. The castle will wake tomorrow to the same routines, the same quiet duties, the same gentle partnerships between human need and human care. And perhaps that's the most remarkable thing of all, that in an age we often imagine as brutal and chaotic, there was still room for tenderness, for the soft ritual of preparing for sleep, for the trust that allows vulnerability in the darkness. Sweet dreams from Thornwick Castle, and thank you for spending this quiet evening with us behind these ancient walls.